Hello friends. Today's segment is symbolic expression, and we have with us Manisha Sharma, who is a sign language interpreter. And today's theme is from Amitabh Bachchan, from a angry young man to a living legend. And this is the first part in which we'll try to highlight the important films which have been done by Amitabh Bachchan, the kind of phenomena in 1970s when he became the angry young man, or when he was known as angry young man, his continued innings from there on, beginning from 1969 with Saath Hindustani, and thereafter the phase of the 1970s when he came in so many films, and many of them they became successful hits, and this persona of the angry young man became quite popular from there on. And this continues even in the early portion of 1980s, and thereafter we see that there is some kind of a dip in fortunes of Amitabh Bachchan in the 1990s. And when you see the second innings of Amitabh Bachchan, the way he played a number of characters, though not all of them they were the main leads in that context, that they were the not the roles of a hero, but at the same time his presence in the film, and if he was acting in these films they became defined because Amitabh Bachchan was acting in these films, and how he also became a household name in the context of his arrival on the small screen television, and when he started his career in television with Kaun Banega Karodpati KBC, and how over a period of time KBC became some kind of a symbol where contestants they were ready to go to this setup, and they were not interested in money, as they said that they came just to meet him. So this kind of a persona, this kind of a phenomena, how this phenomena continues even till date, when he is always seen in so many advertisements, and many lot of the actors, those who were contemporary of Amitabh Bachchan, they are not getting any kind of a work, but there is some kind of a queue so that filmmakers they can work with Amitabh Bachchan. So it requires a lot of courage, a lot of hard work, a lot of luck, a lot of charm, and at the same time we find, as it is being said, that in any kind of a success it is 99% perspiration. So that success came because the kind of work ethic which has been exhibited by him over time and again could be seen in films as well, and those who have worked with him they've also always vouched for this fact that Mr. Bachchan was always there on the sets at time, and he was more hardworking than them. So this kind of a characteristic made him what he is today. So in the context of bibliography or references, one can refer to Bhavna Somaya's Amitabh Bachchan the Legend, Sunny Singh Amitabh Bachchan, Rajni Lal Singhani Survivor Amitabh Bachchan, Virendra Kapoor Excellence the Amitabh Bachchan Way, and Sushmita Dasgupta Amitabh the Making of a Superstar. So these are some of the readings or references which one can refer when one is talking about Amitabh Bachchan. One is trying to go through the various kinds of films which he did in 1970s and thereafter, and what we have seen is that these are not the entire readings which have been written on him. There are so many others which have not been mentioned by me, and apart from that, a number of research papers and a number of PhDs they have also been done on Mr. Bachchan. So this kind of a phenomena, this kind of appeal of Amitabh Bachchan could be seen in the kind of films which he has done over a period of time. And we also see that not only the generation of 1970s and 80s, those who were the cinegoers or the spectators of those times, those who were going to the theatres to watch the films, but his charisma and his craze is there in the new generation as well. And so many of the young children, they are also enthralled by the kind of work which has been done by Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. And when one talks about the way he has carried himself, and one can also see the kind of a milieu of 1970s where you find that there was a lot of unemployment, And because of the kind of JP movement, Jai Prakash Narayan led a movement in 1970s, and with that also came the emergency. So that was the time where there was a lot of unrest in the country, there was a lot of political turmoil, and how the government as well as the opposition, they were trying to score points over each other. And in that framework, when one tries to position Amitabh Bachchan and the way he engaged himself not only in the action sequences but as well as comedy films where he worked, and the kind of comedy scenes which he enacted, all of them they created such kind of a sensation in the minds of the cinegoers that they became his fans. And his career could be seen in the context of the way he has done his work in the last 5 decades, and that is why he has been also seen as the big B or the star of millennium or the Shahinshah of the film industry. And the various kinds of honors which have been given to him, whether in the framework of Padma Shri in 1984, Padma Bhushan in 2001, Padma Vibhushan in 2015. The government of France awarded him with the highest civilian honor, Knight of Legion of Honor in 2007 for exceptional career. So these kinds of awards which have been given to him over a period of time, whether in the framework of the Filmfare Awards or the national awards which were given to him for Agnipath, Black, Pa and Piku. So they are a testimony of the kind of work which he has done over a period of time. As one can say that the awards will not define you, but the kind of work which he has done, despite not being given those awards, his work will speak for the kind of work which he has done. And the kind of awards which have been given to him, they are just some kind of a testimony or evidence of what he has done over a period of time. And when one tries to understand the way he worked in these films, whether Janjeer, Chole, Diwar, Shakti, Dawn, etc., all these films, the kind of action sequences, they became very popular. And the iconic scene in Diwar, which is the dockyard scene, and which has been later replicated in many other films in different ways as well. And then his comedy timing in Chipke, Namak Halal, Amar Akbar Anthony, all these films, this could also be seen. And how he reinvented himself over a period of time, that you see working him in films like Chini Kam, Bhagwan, Pa, Babul, Black, Bhutnath, Piku, etc. And this shows the kind of multi-dimensional personality he had, and his acceptance among the audience, the way he acted on in all these films where he was not the young lead hero, but he was the central figure in all these films. And in this context, I'd like to point out that the way he overcame all these kinds of challenges, and not only the challenges which are there in the film industry, but at the same time the kind of near fatal injury which he had in 1980s when he encountered the kind of an accident which he had when he was shooting for the film Coolie. And thereafter the political life, and in this political life also he had to he was challenged by so many people, but he was able to overcome all these kinds of challenges. And many a times he has in public, when he has talked about his parents and his reverence for his father, that how he always felt that he has not done as much as his father has done. So these kinds of sanskar, these kinds of values which he has imbibed in himself and which have motivated him over a period of time, which is not only extraordinary in the kind of films which he has acted, but at the same time also as a human being, the way he has carried himself. Though there might be critics, those who are going to criticize him on different counts, for speaking and not speaking, but at the same time we also have to realize that he is not a political figure. He is a person who is acting in the films, and though he has that kind of influence, and for that influence, not all times he has to speak on every issue. And So many times it becomes imperative to maintain distance in the context of the context of the political comments which people expect him to do all the time. And we also see that in a phase where he felt that his company was not doing well, and he faced bankruptcy as well. And but he did not say that he is not going to fight it out, and this is what he did over a period of time. And many times it has also been talked about that Amitabh Bachchan is not only a person or a persona, but he is an institution in himself. And this thing also gets reflected, that so many people, those who have worked with him over a period of time, they are always in praise of him. And they have also communicated that how time and again they have learnt so much from him by not only acting with him, but at the same time even observing what he is doing on the screen and off the screen as well. And when we talk about the kind of symbols which are there, then symbols are part and parcel of a certain historical and a social context, and many a times they generate emotions and they excite a lot of masses at the same time. And in the films of Amitabh Bachchan, you also see that symbols definitely play an important role. For example, locket in Janjeer, horse in Mard, loyalty in Namak Halal and Namakaram. So these are the kind of symbols that way, whether these symbols are abstract in nature or whether they are some kind of an artifact. And we see that how he was able to connect with these symbols, how society was able to connect with these symbols. And we see that the way films, they promote culture as well, and film star also has that kind of a responsibility on his shoulders, that the way he behaves on the screen and off the screen, and how so many people they try to copy that film star. So they also are seen as some sort of promoters of culture or promoters of language and the literature. And how Amitabh Bachchan was able to achieve this kind of a cult status, this could be seen. So he is also some sort of a role model in the sense that the kind of dialogues which the way he delivered them, the kind of dialogues they were seen in the context of the contemporary times, and how he was also close to the college in which he studied. And I was fortunate enough to meet him when he presented 51 lakhs for the Kirodimal College auditorium. So how he is also engaged with the kind of institutions which shaped him, and he also acknowledged that institution, especially the teachers of those times, especially Frank Thakur Das, who was his mentor that way, and he was all praise for him. So this acknowledgement of a person who have shaped one's identity or one's personality or one's career is also a grand task that way, and this also reflects the kind of humility which one has. And we also, when we try to look at his films, that how his films are in a way related to the socio-economic and the political realities of that particular time. And in this context, when we try to understand those films, so definitely we are able to in a way deduce that they were trying to portray that particular time as well. And in this context, they were not only milestones, but they were also reflective of an era, and that era was the era of the angry young man, which was reflected in 70s and 80s. And when you talk about the initial foray of Amitabh Bachchan into the films and how K. Abbas provided him this opportunity in Saath Hindustani, and in which he made his debut, and this was some sort of a patriotic film which was dealing with the liberation of Goa from the hands of the Portuguese. And we see that in some of the later films, for example Anand, which talks about the philosophy of life, that how is death is to be seen as some sort of an ultimate truth, and life is just some kind of a stage in the ultimate achievement of death. And Amitabh Bachchan plays some kind of a second fiddle to Rajesh Khanna in that film, but we find that he was able to create that kind of a mark even in the kind of role which was given to him. So his poise and the grace, they were in a way juxtaposition to the cheerfulness which was exhibited by Rajesh Khanna in the film. Apart from that, we also see in one of the films he conveys the relationship of the husband and wife in 1973. This film was Abhiman, and how the misunderstandings and ego of the male ego, the pride, chauvinism, and the jealousy which is exhibited by a male could be seen in this particular film. And this film had Jaya Bachchan, and how she became more famous in the film than her husband, and which was in a way rejected by the husband. This also talks about the position of the women in the society and the kind of compromises which a woman has to make in terms of maintaining her family life. So his film basically were also trying to convey the kind of society in which one lives, and the kind of challenges which are there for not only as individuals but as couples as well. We also see that another film called Namakaram, which was made in 1973, and how Rajesh Khanna and Amitabh Bachchan, they were shown as the good friends, and Amitabh Bachchan plays the role of a rich man's son who has a fight with the union leader, and Rajesh Khanna tries to infiltrate the trade union for his friend, and then he undergoes some kind of a change in his mind where he tries to sympathize with the people, those who are from the working class. And if you see the film, then the story largely concentrates on the rise of the trade unions with the backdrop of Mumbai's textile mills and the inflation in the early 1970s. So we find the issues of the class conflict as well as the class distinctions in this film called Namakaram, and the issue of betrayal as well, that who is being betrayed and by whom. And so these kinds of issues, time and again, they make appearance in the context of the social issues. Then one more film which I'd like to talk about is Milli, where a girl who suffers from some kind of a disease which is considered to be untreatable, and her relationship with Amitabh Bachchan in the film, and how he marries her in the film and takes her abroad for the treatment. And this film also in a way shows some kind of a resonance as Anand showed, where the life's philosophy is shown as death as the ultimate kind of a truth. Apart from that, we also find that Amitabh Bachchan also played a role in a film called Chipke, where you find Dharmendra as the protagonist, and how he disguises himself as a driver, and how Sharmila Tagore, he goes as brother-in-law. The brother-in-law of Sharmila Tagore is shown to be a person who is being praised by Sharmila Tagore time and again, and because of that kind of a gesture by Sharmila Tagore time and again, Dharmendra goes there. And in this particular film, we find that the comic timing of Amitabh Bachchan and Dharmendra that created that kind of a situation that audience, they were left in splits. And apart from that, the most popular film which is seen as some sort of a cult or a classic is Chole, which was an iconic film or a blockbuster. And in this film, we find the characterization of each performers was such that they are remembered even now, and the pace of the film was also such that when you see this particular film, it has been seen to be some kind of a classic, not only in the sense that it was able to create some kind of an impression on the audience, but at the same time its repeat value is also there time and again. Apart from that, we also see one of the most popular films of Amitabh Bachchan was Diwar, where it was the story of impoverished brothers Amitabh and Shashi Kapoor. And Diwar in particular question is denoting some kind of a wall that has left between the two brothers, those who are separated by the destiny. and the situation in a period of socio-political crisis, and how Amitabh Bachchan is shown as some sort of a shoe polish boy or a dockyard worker who was some sort of an underdog, and finally he becomes a smuggler who is not educated and lawless in nature. And on the other hand, his brother is shown to be a good student, who is a police inspector, who is lawful and who is fighting for justice and law, and he is morally upright as well. And that iconic dialogue where he says that mere paas maa hai. So all these kinds of things, they were able to create that kind of a picture in the context of the 1970s, and the politics of 1970s got reflected at this point of time, where we see this persona of angry young man who is anti-establishment and who is fighting against all odds, against all sorts of injustice which are there in the society. And this is what made Amitabh Bachchan the Amitabh Bachchan. And the writing duo of Salim Javed, their contribution as writers, those who were able to create this kind of a persona, which was very well depicted and portrayed by Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. So we'll continue further about the kind of contribution which he has made to the Indian cinema in the next lecture. Thank you very much.